magnificent. He will do the super back and forth, up and down, triple somersault. The only such somersault done anywhere, by anyone in any place in the world. And there he goes. He made it. What a man. Say, but there's Joe the Schmo. He doesn't look very happy about the whole thing. He's going to try the super somersault, too. And better be careful, Joe. And there he goes, and Joe says no. But why, Joe? Joe says no again. Oh, Joe, you schmo. Don't be a schmo, Joe. Be in the know, Joe. Religion and race just don't count in this place. So be in the know, Joe, wherever you go, Joe. Remember that, Joe, you won't fall on your face.
It is Wednesday again. Good evening, everybody. This is Wednesday Night Mouse Party. I am DM Foss, and tonight we've got Iron Road. How's it going, Iron Road?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I'm still waking up.
You just woke up today? Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
Oh.
He's back.
Okay.
Yeah. So it begins.
It's going to be a long Wednesday night chat.
Cowgirl Candace, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing.
Well, that's good to hear. Was it on the overnight? I did a poll during the chat and then forgot to end the poll.
Yes, you did.
Do you remember what the poll was?
No, I did not remember.
I don't either. I remember the results, but I don't remember what I asked. What was 67% said
Yeah, it was
one
like,
thing. Yeah, I don't remember. But so that's the results of that poll for everybody. It was curious.
We don't know, but we know that it was a landslide.
Yes.
And we didn't get the results until after the fact.
So let me
Put the banner up.
yeah, I'll do that in a second. We'll look at the poll for. There we go. So this week's poll was: will 2023 be a great year, better than 2022, about the same as 2022, no better, no worse, worse than 2022, or black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? And I was surprised the results are pretty even across the board. About the same, black hole sun took it with 31%. About the same was 25%. Worse than 2022 was 23%. And a great year better than 2022 was 21%. And that was here. I'll put. Let me go over the comments. And here's a link for the community tab. If you haven't voted, you can go over there and vote. But that was out of 48 votes. I was kind of surprised how even it was. I thought everybody would say worse, but
It's really hard to tell, but then again, it's like, how worse can things really get? But then also, things could always be worse. So, no truer words have been spoken.
My 2022 was a lot better than 2021, so I'm going to assume 2023 will be just a little bit better.
I think so. That's that's what I think. We're a little farther away from the cough.
Yeah,
Everybody's kind of coming back to their senses.
the fact that it's taken this long for people to kind of snap out of it is mildly concerning, though.
Well, it. I think, in another year it will just be another forgotten event.
Yes, G23. I did see that the GOA Oregon got its first 2A win of the year.
What exactly did they say?
From what I understand, the Judge Ratio, he's not doing playing around with this case, and he put a TRO on the entirety of. He's keeping the TRO in place on the entirety of 114.
So why don't you explain what's going on?
So
for those who might not know.
114 was a ballot measure, a pernicious anti-gun bill that not only violates your Second Amendment rights in terms of being able to purchase a gun, but it lets they're trying to establish basically a registry in all senses of the thing. You need a permit to purchase before you could even go to buy. Oregon, in their infinite wisdom, never even set up any infrastructure or allocated any funding. Neither did any police department do any of the following of that infrastructure or funding for trying to get people to have permit to purchase. Although the state police were oddly enough optimistic that this wasn't going to go, that for some reason that it was going to go unchallenged, and had a quick form on standby to put up on their website if you wanted to get one of these licenses to buy. But that whole bill has caused a bunch of backlogging, and Ratio GOA filed a lawsuit, and it was heard, and it was a show cause hearing, and he put a TRO in place, and he made the state Attorney General's office, Rosenblum, do what's a show cause hearing as to why he should not keep the TRO in place. And from what I understand, he was not impressed with the state's arguments or any of the sort. And so, as far as the further litigation continues, 114 has been officially paused.
And that's more fallout from the New York Rifle and Pistol Association ruling by the Supreme Court, which helped support the Second Amendment, your constitutional right, Second Amendment. So there were a few comments from the poll. Let me hit those real quick, and then we'll say hello to everybody that's out there. But so Rich Wright said, I went with Soundgarden lyrics because it's Soundgarden. Gun websites. Is the future what you are told it will be, what you discover it to be, or what you make it? And New York Outcast is predicting a zombie apocalypse. So thank you to everybody who voted on the poll. And if you haven't voted in the poll, go over there and vote in the poll. So out there, let's see who was saying hello. G23 said he was first. DJ Play Nice. Wesley Foster. I will send you a link, G23. I forgot. Sorry. Ozzy Orsborn. Hillbilly Up. Good evening. 2 Live Move. So give me just a
And that's
second, G23, and I'll send you that link.
And I think I may be not talking about what G23 was talking about. I just got on the OFF's website here about this. Rashio, Harding County state judge, issued his decision on the state's effort to eliminate this 3-day safeguard rule. Per federal law, all safeguards built in to allow transfer of the firearm to take place when background check system fails. And the background check system in Oregon right now is near total collapse because of 114. There's a big panic buy guns right now. And it's even gotten so bad that CHL holders, concealed handgun license owners, there is actually a separate thing for them to be expedited for the state, Oregon State Police to look through. Even that is starting to crumble. And people even with CHL licenses are being pulled on hold.
Gunmetal Guy USA. Good evening.
I'm gonna actually put that out in the chat.
CNT Designs and Arms. Hey, Coop. Oh, yeah. Hang on.
G23 joining?
There. No, the banner.
Oh, the banner.
Yes. So at the bottom of the screen, there's a banner that's scrolling with an email and a link. You can send comments, suggestions, or pictures within reason. And in the description, there's a link for the overnight Gilded server, place to hang out, chit chat, share pictures and memes and stuff. And you can get a hold of myself or a bunch of the people that you see here on the chat. You can find some new friends at the Gilded server, the overnight Gilded server. Roll call. Hey, how's it going? But I think it'll be a better year. Knock on wood. But I always think, things will work out in the end. Most of the time.
So, welcome, boss. Thanks for sending me the invite. And
yeah, the one time I didn't send you an invite, because you never come on when I send you the invite. The one time I didn't send an invite, now you start bitching that you didn't get an invite.
I've come on a couple times that you've sent the invite. I can't just be here at your every beck and whim. I got to make sure that I, I'm picky. No. So with the 114, we actually had a couple wins on January 3rd.
Yeah.
So the judge in Harney County did his decision and put it out on the TRO for what they call the Charleston loophole, which is the 3-day. If a background check is not been determined, either a proceed, deny, or delay at 3 days, any gun shop has the right to turn over the firearm if they so choose. So he put a stay on that, saying you cannot stop that from happening, which was part of Measure 114. And the state got butthurt over that and said, hey, we're going to run to the state Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, pound sand, you're going to have to live with it till this trial's over.
And why that is important is if there was not a limit on a waiting period, then the state could just decide they're not going to give anybody the go ahead on a gun, and delay and delay and delay, and basically it's a backdoor ban where they don't let anybody purchase guns anymore because they just don't give the approval. So with that limit, Washington, it's 10 days. Used to be 3, but then when I forget the number for the bad
1639.
The bill
1639
that shall
happened.
not be named.
Yeah. But that's why, when you hear, well, a 3-day wait, what's the big deal? Or 1 week wait, what's the big deal? Well, it's prevents the government from making it a forever delay. And that's why.
So like
That's
Oregon
why-
law requires that the state police have a response in 30 minutes. Now,
Is that
since
for CHL holders, or is that for any applicant with a
every
gun?
application has to be processed in 30 minutes,
Okay.
which they're not being able to do right now.
Yeah, because they're really slammed right now.
Yeah, right now you're talking on average 3 to 5 week response time. Last number I knew, it hit like 40,000 on the waiting list. I think it's down to like 35, 36,000 on the waiting list right now.
And that's the other thing is, like I talked about earlier, from what I understand too, when I got off-PAC's email, that they said that Oregon State Police have a separate window to view people that have a concealed carry license. And so that way they could expedite them, and even that's getting backlogged, which is really
Yeah.
bad news.
So normally, if you have a CHL, you're going to have a decision probably within the first like 5 minutes. But right now, I think the last I saw there was 8,000 CHL holders that are on a backlog list. Now they still get they still get first in line, but they're still being, backlogged also. So they're still, coming through quicker if you put that on your 4473. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's every time there is anti-gun legislation, there's a huge uptick in gun ownership, which is the opposite of what those who push super restrictive gun laws want. And they have not figured that out yet. The biggest reason that the AR-15 is the most popular gun is because they were banned at one time. If none of those laws has happened, I don't think we would have half the gun owners that we do, like we do now. Any of them, going back to the NFA and the other one,
GCA.
Yeah, the Gun Control Act.
And then you had the Hughes Amendment or something like that, the Bradley bill or something, Brady bill.
Brady law. Yep.
Every time, in one of the most recent one is Oregon. Once the 114 was announced, how many new guns were bought?
Well,
Before.
and also, you think you go back to was it the 2021 or the 2022 riots, the Summer of Love that was going on? How many people in inner cities also bought them in a panic? So,
after the last court hearing in Harney County on the 23rd, I received an email from a guy who is one of the people that have been actually backlogged for over a year. he's not the one that was mentioned in court that's been backlogged for 2 years. And so, him and I had some back and forth with emails. And yeah, his story is quite compelling, and I'm trying to get him to agree to come on the live stream and talk, but I'm not 100% sure if he will, because he's got a very interesting, situation with being on the waiting list for right now. He's at like 18 months.
Wow. Hopefully you can get him on. That'd be interesting to hear.
A whole entire year, jeez.
I got upset when I had to wait, and it was, it was Cabela's, and it's their store policy, so, they can have whatever policy they want, but it was somewhere in between the police station and them, there was something got lost. And they wouldn't do anything until they got the approval. But I called the local police department, and they said they sent out all the approvals. But I couldn't get Cabela's to look at anything because, as far as they knew, they didn't get the approval. So I'm like, well, just keep it. I don't want it anymore.
Keep it, refund me.
Yeah, I may have said it a lot louder and to a lot more people, but I understand. That's their policy; they can do it the way they want, and I have the right not to buy it.
Yeah, that's the thing with going to like big box stores. And when I just say big box stores, it's not just like major brands. Like if you go to like Bi-Mart, they're gonna have that same kind of a policy. Because they're listening to what their attorneys have to say. Because here's the situation, and I kind of understand what they're saying. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I understand what they're saying. Is if they surrender the firearm, they turn it over to you, which they have the option to do after 3 days. If it comes back as delay or deny, they now have to get law enforcement involved to get that firearm back. And with the zero tolerance that's going on right now, that possibly could cost them their FFL. And if you're talking like Cabela's or, Sportsman's, stuff like that, that's not just that one store. That can result in the entire corporation losing their FFL.
Yeah, the shop I usually go to is a small shop. Well, they own 3 small shops, but it's a local shop, so I'm supporting a local business and good customer service. That's one of the big things for me is they have great customer service, and they'll release it after 10 days, no matter what, because that's legally they can do that.
The other aspect to this entire case that I wanted to talk about is that I am honestly astonished and surprised that the state Supreme Court is being very, very mute on this issue, with that whenever the state attorney general doesn't get her way, she tries to run up there, and I'm really surprised that they have not intervened at all. Honestly,
you're not the only one, because I mean, both times that they've tried with the Harney County decisions, they've been slapped down, and both times I'm like, wait, what just happened? The Oregon Supreme Court said no. Like, I'm like, come on, that's not something that you would be expecting out of this. And maybe the New York Pistol and Rifle v. Bruin decision has a lot to do with what they're kind of going with, and they don't want to get involved. you know. So they're kind of saying, you know what, we don't want to hear this unless we absolutely have to hear this. So you wait and find out what the judge decides when the entire trial's over, and then come talk to us.
Hey, DJ. I was going to call you DJ Pooh Nice, but I don't know if you want to be called Pooh Nice.
Oh, wow. I didn't think
Well-
of the implication of the poo in that regard. So, yeah, we'll stick with the play nice.
Instead
and not
of,
playing
"Oh."
poo, for God's sake.
And instead of "oh wow," you should have said "oh bother."
Not bad. I could have stayed in character, right? How y'all
Yeah.
doing?
Oh, there is a rumbly in my tumbly.
You know, I came to the realization after watching all the VHS tapes of that, and you know how he likes honey and all that stuff. That's got to be one sticky, you know, stuffed animal. Because you got to think after a while and having all that honey on him.
It's okay because he's not real.
Yeah, I forget logic doesn't play in Fantasyland.
Yeah, roll call saying for FFL, the counter person has to be on point and stop straw. Straw. He's talking straw purchases. That's a biggie. And that's where the person who's going to receive the gun, who may not be legally allowed to own a firearm, will send somebody else to go buy it for them. That's what a straw purchase is.
You mean I can't ask Joe Blow over there on the corner to go buy me a gun?
No, and I think it's
Joking. I'm joking, people. That's
I think a lot of times, like Rokal has told some stories, and it sounds like a lot of times it's like girlfriends. The guys will send
Yeah.
the girlfriends in to go.
or, you know, a husband who may have had a dirty past asks the wife to go in and buy a firearm because she can buy it and he can't, or vice versa, you know.
There's a specific way that you have to go about gifting a firearm if that's what you're going to do. And a lot of people, I think, the common person is confused by that. They just, I think that the average person is going to assume that if you can go in and purchase something, regardless of any waiting period, right? If it's a cash and carry, that there's no reason they can't buy something for someone else. And it's just introducing them to the idea of the 4473 sort of thing. But yeah, straw purchases are a real threat. And it's the kind of thing I'm glad that Rokal brought that up.
So, I've kind of talked about this story before, and it goes along with the straw purchase. I was in a LGS, and this guy came in to double check if his 4473 came back. He's like, yeah, because my girlfriend's birthday's coming up and I want to give her the gun and blah blah blah. Like, I looked right at the dude. I'm like, do you realize you just admitted to a straw purchase because you're not married to her, and everything, and you're yelling across the entire store that you want to know, you're being quite loud. I'm like, so you're kind of being a moron on how you go about this, And so, yeah, they had to call in the store manager to find out if they could even proceed because of the way he went about saying what he was saying.
I dropped a link for Rokal's channel. He's got some videos on his gun shop stories, so working at a gun shop, and some of the experiences he's had. They're kind of interesting and funny. So you can go check him out. Rokal said straw purchases are against the law, and that's a way. That's a big no-no for FFLs, and ignorance of the law isn't
No excuse.
Isn't an excuse. Yeah, that's, and the government can be strict. He's talked about, one of the stories he's talked about is they released a gun legally, but that person did something bad, so they came after him. It dragged him into it, even though he's, did everything by the book. He still got dragged into it because they're looking to blame whoever they can blame.
I wonder, the condition in which gun rights has anything to do with how Sue happy this nation is, because it seems like once we got into the late, going from the 18th to the 19th century and then getting into the 20th, more and more frivolous lawsuits kind of started their way down the pipe, and then now recently, they're coming up with ideas that they need to hold it. Not if there's a mass shooting, not only does the gun company need to be held accountable, but also the FFL that released the gun to them in the first place. And the thing is that that's one thing that kind of always gets me is that, okay, but what if his background check comes back clean? Is the FFL still on the hook and the gun manufacturer? No, it doesn't make any sense.
It should have to do, in my estimation, it should have to do with intent. And doing things like being able to sue manufacturers or retailers for those sort of things is a bit like trying to cure evil with even more evil. And I'm using that term relatively loosely, but as a way to try and curb gun crime, no, it doesn't. It just doesn't play. We're actually talking about this a little bit on Barbecue's chat today, and there is always going to be evil. There are always going to be evil people. There is no one thing that will solve those problems. It essentially cannot be solved. You're talking about a utopia, and I don't believe that sort of utopian existence may exist for human beings. I put faith in my fellow man, but not enough faith to believe that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a kind of a double-edged sword question on going about this suing, firearm manufacturers or LGSs. Do you think there's a possibility we could stop this if somebody in the 2A turned around and sued like Ford or GM because, they were involved in an accident or something, or like a drunk driving incident, and say, hey, look what happened with, Bushmaster and Remington. Now we can apply that same logic over here and say, you know what? Why can't we hold Ford accountable because, their lane departure didn't prevent the truck or SUV from hitting my relative's car and killing them or injuring them?
Well, no,
Because
you kind of mixed a couple things in there, I think, with if it's faulty equipment, then yes, absolutely, and that that does happen. But for the who is it that you mentioned for
Bushmaster, Remington.
Bushmaster, that was different. That was a specific law in that specific state, and I forget what state it is. Can't think
Massachusetts.
New York.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts was Sandy Hook.
They
were actually
it had to
specifically over their advertising.
And that
advertised it as
trade in your man card.
There was a law that dealt with that.
It was just, the strange, just the strange.
It almost seemed.
I'm putting it in family-friendly terms, but just the murder fantasy sort of thing that a lot of gun companies were pushing at that time. It just didn't strike me as right, but that's why they got sued, because they were advertising it to be used in nefarious ways.
But then again, also that entire law in Massachusetts was almost intent, like by design, was made to go around the what's the law that protect the fair use or not fair
FLACA.
use? What's it
FLACA.
called? FLACA.
Yeah, it's the Protection of Lawful and Commerce Act.
Yeah. And it almost seemed intentional that way, by design and specifically to target gun companies in a way.
Well, I mean, if you look at like New York right now, they have, what is it? I think there's a lawsuit that's targeting every manufacturer, and like I don't remember how
For
many
noise complaints and all that other stuff,
For-
jazz.
Well, no, these ones are because of the shooting in Buffalo at the mall, at that store. So they're like suing all these different gun manufacturers and stuff. And it's like, okay, if you can go around PLACA, and try to get this lawsuit going, how many vehicle advertisements do you see that where they say, collision avoidance system, in their vehicles? Well, if that's the case, why are we still having car accidents?
Well, you can sue anybody you want to sue, but the judge can also throw it out once it gets to the judge.
Well, and that's the other thing too. It's like it all depends on how politically driven the judge is, and at the same time, we're also comparing apples to oranges here a little bit, because the thing is, cars are viewed way more innocently than
See,
a firearm is.
that's what I'm getting at, is how many people are going to jump to argue that for a car? How many people that are anti-gun are going to be like, no, you can't apply that to cars? Whereas you could then turn around and say, well, you're violating, PLACA, but you don't seem to care that you're violating, a law because it's something that you don't agree with. You could get it to go, turn to a very like polarized, in the media. So you could start playing media in it. So it'd have to then either they're going to go, okay, we're not going to hear any of those cases, or they're going to have to start treating the pretty much, if you're in business, you're open season for a lawsuit.
Sergeant Joe Smith brings up a good something interesting. Didn't Kmart get sued for Columbine? And I just looked at it, Google, and it appears so that they did. They were immediately after Columbine shooting. They were pressured so badly that they discontinued the ammo sales. They haven't carried handguns since the 1970s, but still sell hunting rifles and other long guns.
Is there still any Kmart's in existence?
I think they have there is an online store, but there's no physical stores anymore, as far as I know.
I know about 3 years ago, the Kmart in the town up the road finally went out of business. That was one of the, I mean, I guess there possibly could still be Kmart stores, but I don't know of any.
So there's an example. Actually, I think we walked into something that's kind of interesting. The public pressure on Kmart after the Columbine shootings is what had them removing things from their shelves. It was not the legal system.
Yep.
No court said remove these things. No court said, oh, well, the families of these victims can now sue. And that's what we're dealing with. What is this, 20 years hence? That was like 20 plus years ago, wasn't it? Don't want to dwell on the event itself, but just the example that I think it sets there. What do you think about that?
There's 9
That it should be left in the court. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I guess I should have said to leave it in the court of public opinion is where I think those kind of pressures should stand when it comes to retailers, not to the legal system.
Yeah,
But see,
and the like with it when you're talking cars compared to guns, a lot more people own cars than they own guns. That's what a lot of the sentiment that goes along with guns is there's just people that don't care. They don't care about guns, so they don't care if they disappear. And that's I don't know. I can't say the majority don't care, but they don't think about it. It's not part of their life. So if it's gone, it's nothing to them.
It's
Even
kind of like
though-
not my pig, not my farm type of mentality.
yeah, it's even though it's a constitutional law, even the Constitution, there's there I it's a I will say it's a minority, but there are still people that will say the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, that they don't they want limits on that. They want limits on this. They in because it doesn't affect them, so they don't care.
Well,
And
a lot of people are saying that they want limits. It's not that they want limits like on the entire First Amendment. They want to be able to, limit the opposition of what they believe. So they want to be able to silence certain people, but not silence everybody.
yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying is if whatever speech disappears, it won't affect them. And that it's similar to the Second Amendment. If the Second Amendment disappeared, it will have an effect. But if you don't own a gun, it's the Second Amendment disappears. Tomorrow is exactly the same for you as it was today.
What's that saying? Is that in Nazi Germany, I never spoke for the Jews because I wasn't one. And then when they came for me, there was no one else to speak for me.
And I don't know if there's anyone out there in the side chat screaming, you're comparing a constitutional right versus a privilege when I was talking about firearms to cars. Yes, I understand that driving is a privilege, whereas 2A is a constitutional right, which is protected.
Yeah, not enough people understand the difference.
Go down the deep, dark rabbit hole. Yes, you do have a constitutional right to free travel, but what people don't understand is free travel does not mean that you can drive a vehicle. There's multiple ways of getting from place to place without ever driving a vehicle. Riding a horse, flying, taking a Greyhound, Amtrak.
Yep. Public transport.
What it does allow us, what the provision is for us to have the inalienable use of the highways and byways. It doesn't say that you can do so in a car as a guarantee. So you're guaranteed free passage kind of thing, but that's it. The conveyance is subject to any laws that come after that. So that might be a quick way to have people understand that. It's a fair example to use. Everybody has a car. Everybody has a cell phone. There are plenty of examples, and I think Foss is absolutely right that if it doesn't apply to me, what do I care sort of attitude about stuff. And then those who do not care are asked to care about these issues when there is a tragedy. And so, of course, the extra emotion, no one wishes this to happen. What can I do? Well, those who chose not to pay attention because it didn't apply, it continues to not apply. And all of a sudden, the dominant paradigm of whatever media sources they're listening to or whoever's ear they happen to be, or whoever they're lending their ear to, is how they form their opinions about those things. These discussions are one of the ways that we can battle back against that kind of, that lack of understanding, really. You have to understand that, I think we have to remind ourselves that a lot of people aren't anti so much as they are naive. They haven't made up their minds. And so when that example, and I got to tell you, Iron, when somebody starts with that bullshit about, when they came for this, it didn't that, and Cold Dead Hands and all those other chestnuts. I mean, those things are like, can we just leave those in the past? Because those are attempts to stir the same kinds of emotions that we don't like to have stirred. So when somebody does that, it makes me cringe. It's a bit like, you're a good buddy who gets like too wasted to know what he's saying and just starts, speaking bullshit. And that drives people so much farther away. And I'm not trying to, the ire that's in my voice is more because of the situation than it is about anyone on the panel or you specifically, Iron Road. I don't want to be misinterpreted there. But I get really tired of some members of our community not helping us by just shutting up with that bullshit. It's like,
What do you mean?
offer.
What do you mean?
Go ahead.
Or, I'm lost in the sauce. What you were trying to get at with what I said, or
the whole first they came for this and then they came for that. It's kind of become a trope it's not. I don't want to say it's overused, but it's kind of overused.
well, but then again, how many examples do we have? I mean, we got a few good
Overused
ones.
and misused a lot.
Yeah. Because DJ. That's I honestly thought the same thing, but I just didn't feel like.
Well, I mean, and thank you for clarifying that. I do know that I'm a little bit mercurial, and I do tend to skitter left and right with my examples. But I can step off of that one into the one I guess that got buried because I also speak a little too quickly sometimes. And another example that I absolutely despise is from My Cold Dead Hands. The whole Charlton Heston hoisting a Kentucky rifle over his head. Those are disgusting tropes for us. They don't work. They are the past. Leave them there, kind of thing.
Well, it's not only that. It's just you come up, you got an anti-gunner, so they have you have no right to saying to the hunter or whatever, so on, you have no right to own what you own, and then they return with that type of retort. It just comes off as hostile and unforgiving, and needless to say, blunt. And sure, I mean, there's times as gun owners we need to be blunt with with the likes of anti-gun organizations and people that are maybe ignorant of the situation. But at the same time, we kind of have to we have to balance on that fine knife edge of logic and reason and kind of make them have those epiphanies and those Einstein aha eureka moments. Now I see what you're trying to say. Now I see the vision and the pros and the cons of what this all brings and entails and what disaster it brings on one end of the spectrum, but what type of levity it brings on the other side.
Well, for the overarching argument, I get caught sometimes in between where I believe in talking to somebody who either feels differently than I do or doesn't think about it, reaching out to those who disagree. But part of me too is that cold dead hands out of my cold dead hands where this is a right. I just, you have no right to take my right. I understand that sentiment and I feel that sometimes, but I don't know where I'm kind of talking myself in circles now. That's part of what, my YouTube channel is about is, not, I'm not the super operator or, I don't have that great gun knowledge to teach people things. It's more just to, hey, look at this thing, let's talk about this thing. I'm just an average guy. I've got this thing. You could have this thing. This is not a scary thing. We can go do this together. Let's go have some fun. That's kind of what my channel is about. And so I'm really losing what I was talking about. I agree with you, DJ, that's not the way to approach it. Even though you have the absolute right to say that,
Mhm.
that this is my right to have this thing. You have no right to take this thing. Go screw yourself.
Oh yeah.
Well,
And Foss, I
but-
do also feel that strongly. Please continue. My apologies.
That's I try not to approach it that way, because you cannot shout somebody into changing their mind. It will never happen. So I want to have that conversation with somebody, that logical conversation, and to try and change somebody's mind. And not everybody wants to participate in that, and that's their right. And I'm not saying that to you, DJ. I'm just kind of rambling now.
No doubt. Well, it's kind of like John Stuart Mill, the free exchange of ideas. The marketplace of ideas, or the free exchange of ideas kind of thing. It's a John Stuart Mill concept anyway. So that's like mid 19th century. And what that has always meant to me is the kind of thing that you're describing. It's providing the forum for a discussion. And so it's not just that your channel is hosting these things, it's the discussion itself. So we are members of a conclave now who are having this discussion. We're doing this in a real time. We don't know how many may be listening. There's some indicators of what that might be, right? The carryover from this is we don't know who might be listening in the future, kind of thing. And G-Webs is kind of fond of saying, realize that what you're saying, you are now saying in perpetuity. There will be a record of this kind of thing. I like to live far more fast and loose with things. But when it comes back to the concept we're talking about right now, I wish to suggest this. There are things that we think, and then there are things that we say. Now, the First Amendment connection, like Foss was alluding to there, is that you can say whatever the fuck you want. I'll support your right to do that. You could run up and down the street naked. I don't care. I mean, I do care, kind of thing. But it's not like I'm not going to prevent you from your expression. My rights end at the end of my skin. The end of my fingertips is where those things end. Anything that I do beyond that is with the understanding that I'm not infringing in any other way on other people, kind of thing. It's a golden rule. There are so many ways that this is reinforced when we are children. The fact that it becomes so convoluted and that all these explanations become necessary as we get farther and farther into what is supposed to be our wisdom is a contradictory thing to me. I do like to believe that I am gaining wisdom based on my experience, kind of thing. And what my experience has shown, so I can wrap it back to this point that we were talking about, is that I need sometimes to temper my words and mind my tone. And I don't like to do that. That's not who I am naturally. But especially in the 2A forum, in public discussions, I try to do that as much as possible. I'm not saying everybody else does it. I'm just trying to be for myself.
Coop said, you can only educate people that come to their position from a logical basis. If they get there through emotion, you can't talk facts and logic with them.
Well,
That's true. And some people just will not change their mind. It does not matter. It is their religion. And that's fine. I still will try and have a rational conversation. I'm looking for those who, maybe don't want to listen, to try and plant that seed. So it may not grow, but if nobody talks to them, they may not, are they going to change their mind on their own? And so if I can give them that little bit to where even if they never fully adopt a pro Second Amendment stance, maybe they'll think about, well, Foss isn't that, he's not some crazy guy with guns. He's just a regular dude, So when something comes up for vote, maybe they'll think about that. It could be a fool's errand, but I'm happy to try.
What I think that does is it raises the intelligence of the conversation. And because it rises in each individual case, and there's such potential in that, the way that you can push that out into like the results from there is that everyone becomes slightly more informed. Is it to the smallest degree that's measurable? Yes, because it's one individual to another with an idea. We're just transferring ideas, and I need to stop there. But I dig it. I dig it.
And I will say, for what I'll call our side, this is a two-way street. So if you want them to respect your rights, you have to respect their rights. If they're socialists, if they're legally a socialist, they have the right to be a socialist. You need to protect their right to be a socialist. You can fight to countermand, any laws that they want to pass. But our Constitution was written in a way where they can be, their opinion. It is valid for them to have a differing opinion, whether that opinion is valid or not, if that makes sense. And that's one thing that about our side that sometimes drives me crazy is they'll say, I don't like them, I don't like this thing. Well, if they have a right to do that thing, whether you like it or not, whether it's the First Amendment right, they have that same First Amendment right. So we need to protect the right for everyone. If we don't, then nobody has that right.
That's one struggle that it seems to, I seem to kind of have a struggle on a daily basis, or maybe not a daily basis, but whenever I think about it, I don't know if you guys listen to any more conservative or, more liberal. I kind of try to balance out with my liberal voices and my conservative news intake and their opinion intake. And I remember listening to Crowder that there was one time where he had a point that there's people that you could change their minds, and then there's people that you cannot negotiate with ever, period. They want you completely gone, end of story. They want your rights abolished. And that's where, from my cold dead hands, more or less, kind of starts coming, the emotions start to rise and comes up into here, and then eventually comes out through comes out as words from your mouth. And it's not just necessarily that type of emotion gets anger that people are attacking something that you value, but it's something that you not only value and cherish, but that you want to pass on to other people, because it just doesn't necessarily impact one person. It impacts a multitude, a vast swath of the entire generation and the entire population, if you would, if not the community. And furthermore, if we can plant the seed of question or a seed of doubt and do that 1,000 times over, opposed to trying to waste our breaths with maybe 100 people that will not have their minds changed, I'd rather plant that 1,000 seeds than try to, negotiate with people that just won't have their minds changed.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of the man's presidency, although I think he was like a solid dude in a lot of ways. But like Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly and carry a big stick. That just occurred to me. That's a decent quote to throw out there, because that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. And I think what Foss is sort of saying too, at least to the part of the speak softly, it's like, the be kind thing, help people who are naive become educated. And then, as we're also speaking, don't try and force things. If you try to beat down with facts or, you have to understand it this way, this is the logical thing. You're being illogical. Well, the emotion is the lack of logic, right? So if it's, put on the kid gloves, man. It doesn't need to be a fight or die thing all the time. In Iron Road, you started, like maybe 20, 30 minutes ago, pointing out how our society is so litigious. It has become such a me or an us against them, and the them is anybody who isn't the me or we. And like, that's so silly. It's so divisive. It should. Okay, I have to stop again because I'll start.
Well,
I'll start to pontificate.
If you are sure of your stance and your opinion, you should be able to talk to anybody about that opinion.
At least anyone that's willing to listen.
There's
Go on.
people that I kind of know, that when you hear them talk, that I don't want anything to do with them. That's fine. I don't want to talk to them. Want this and want that, and it almost sounds like they're afraid to talk to them because they're going to get their opinion changed. I could talk to a card-carrying communist about whatever, and I'm not going to become a communist just because I talk to them. I will give them my opinion on why I don't believe in and I have had a conversation like that, talking to somebody. We were talking about Che Guevara, and then when I brought up about what about all the people that he killed, well, it's not about that. Well, no, it's exactly about that. That's kind of his thing. If you are confident and sure of your opinion, you can talk to somebody else and not be converted. Well, it
almost
someone else's belief does not need to tarnish your own.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that's occurring to me as you're saying those things. And I think we all need to be slightly more prepared to be wrong. I mean, in our culture, participant right here, all of us are. So we are constantly reinforced, negatively reinforced. It's like, don't make an error. You need to do this until it is correct. Correctness is what most of us strive toward. And it's reinforced from the time we're in school, and before that, even the way the mores and, the responsibilities to our fellow citizens are introduced to us, sort of deal. So, sorry, I began to lose my point. I pass it back.
What Coop is bringing up something that I listen. He says, I listen and follow a lot of people I disagree with. I do it because it sharpens my argument. I will do that too. I will watch stuff that I know I disagree with their stance, where they're coming from, how they view something, just because there are times where it will make me look at a subject differently. Like the TV show Adam Ruins Everything. I don't know if anybody else has seen that. Probably 90% of everything that they say, I absolutely disagree with. Their approach to the subject, I disagree with. But there have been times where I hadn't thought about a subject in a certain way. So it allows me to look at my opinion differently, and check my opinion. And so I understand what I think I understand.
I've challenged myself a few times with talking to people I knew were like absolutely opposed to a lot of the things that I stand for, and just having normal day-to-day conversations with them. I worked with a guy who was openly socialistic, and many times we had political discussions, and we both could say, well, I see your point on this, but here's a counterpoint to and we never got into shouting matches, because again, once you start to bring emotions into it, at that point you're already losing, because emotions will once one person starts getting emotional, they've pretty much shut down listening to any other point of view, and any kind of logical response that you could come up with is going to fall on deaf ears.
But one of the G23, one of the things that you can do, one of the emotional components that you can share is empathy. One of the things I picked up from Brooke Cheney is, it is the idea of a mother's loss. It's not unique to her, but a mother's loss, like the concept of that. It doesn't matter what part of the political spectrum you are, that you're on. One mother to another is, any parent. I'm not a parent. I can't relate to this, but I understand the concept. At least I believe I do. And that is, it doesn't matter whose child it is. That child's death is, and we're referring to these tragedies. It's a reprehensible loss. There is nothing more tragic than innocence taken, kind of thing. I think that if you can share that empathy with folks, there are losses on both sides in so many different ways. And it's not about the guns, it's about the violence. And I think that's a part of the discussion that we don't always address, or maybe give short shrift to, because it's, it's the violence. It's not the machines, it's not the tools, it's the violent act committed by people. So yeah, wish it was different.
And that's where I think on to your point, DJ, when I know, and Boss too, I think to be honest, everyone in this room hates it right now, is that you talk about the cold dead hands and all this other stuff. And I think one of the biggest main problems, and this is on both sides have an issue with, is deciphering a difference in opinion versus an actually threatening, dangerous enemy. Like, for example, some of the people that you talked about, like that they're communists or socialists and this, that, and the other, and then some of them are pro-gun control, some of them are not. And those are people that have a mere difference in opinion. They're not an outright enemy. Whereas someone that has a complete different belief system that goes beyond that, it's almost like there's sometimes a bit of a gray area, and then there's times where it's not so gray at all, but there is a fine line, and trying to decipher whether if it's a fine line or not, that's where I think both sides particularly struggle.
I think one of the things that contributes to that struggle, Iron, is that people don't make the distinction between an argument and a debate. And I know that an argument is a component part of a debate, but debate as like the intellectual discourse kind of thing, and just a disagreement, that's an argument. Like the tenseness, that the back and forth. Well, but hold on, because when people say I don't want to argue about it, or I'm not going to debate this with you, when people say I'm not going to debate this with you, I usually have something kind of rude that I'll toss back, because that to me is the weakest position you could take.
Oh yeah,
that to me shows that you do indeed, and I'm not saying you specifically, man, but I'm saying that indicates to me that your ego is so fragile that you cannot be wrong. You've come to the point where your emotions will be either so out of control that you're going to do something that you're going to regret, or that might, that somebody might want to, whack you for, slap you down for trying, kind of thing. And otherwise, it just needs to go ahead.
Yeah, it's the traits of agreeableness and disagreeableness butting heads, and maybe not agreeableness meeting disagreeableness. It's more or less disagreeableness coming to a head with another form of disagreeableness just on the opposite end of the spectrum, and butting heads. And if you have two people on both different spectrums with differing opinions, and they rank highly in disagreeableness, it's guaranteed that they would end in either a shouting match or just in a pure antithesis of thinking that he's a jerk and that person's a jerk. And to people that are high in disagreeableness, people that just turn a shoulder and say, I don't want to argue or debate this topic with you, it's almost viewed as a cop-out. But when you put people in terms of agreeableness, in the same room with differing opinions, they can at least empathetically and sympathetically get their points across in a manner, in such a way that it's almost elegantly and beautiful to watch in terms of civil discourse.
Oh, that'd be
let me
great.
Let me say a quick hello to Terrace Smith's Kitchen and MCK. I wanted to hit a couple things real quick. CNT Designs and Arms said passion is good, emotion is not. And sometimes it just comes out. You know, you get upset about something, and that emotion comes out. I've done it. I have done that on G23 show a couple times. You know, we are people. We are, you know, flesh bags of emotion that, you know, that happens. And Tara said, whoops, that's the wrong Tara said. Well, I guess that is what I wanted to click on. Ever think the right and left have the same enemy, an enemy that does everything to keep us divided and fighting each other rather than them? Yeah, and it's usually upper level right and left that, you know, they maybe don't have the same starting points, but the ending goal tends to be the same, where basically subjugation of the masses. And it's
Well,
I'm not going to go too far in that. We're going to go and down.
So, anyone paying attention to SCOTUS and their upcoming hearing in about a day now?
I heard about that.
I haven't.
So I kind of talked about it on my show maybe around a month ago or so. On January 6th, kind of ironic that they're going to actually listen to it on January 6th. They're going to hear a case that will affect the elections. And it's what is it? I think it's 22-380 is the case, and I don't know if I'm gonna live stream that or not. I'm thinking about if they're going to have that where you can view it. I may think about actually streaming that, because that'll be kind of a little different than what I've done on my show. You know.
So what's the case about? Is it like redistricting, or because that's been something that's been lately?
No. So this is asking to have the elections results from 2020 thrown out, and having 180 politicians removed from office and criminally charged.
And SCOTUS has accepted hearing this?
Yes, and they're going to listen to it on January 6th.
Whack.
That's a head scratcher.
I don't know about that.
Literally.
I haven't heard anything about it, so I don't know.
I was thinking something completely different.
I'm doubtful.
I was
anything
thinking about
like that will happen.
You can't reverse the past. There's no penalty that could be waged, that could be levied at this point that is going to correct those things. I mean, as a to reveal a truth, kind of thing. Yes, but like the actual removal of people, or like, can you like having to have a separate election? I mean, what the hell are you going to do?
Well, and that's the thing.
Go ahead.
No, that's the thing. It's asking the justices to create new rules practically, and that's not what the justices are there to do.
It's not creating new rules. There is precedent of, and there is actual standing on this. they can, and SCOTUS has the ability to declare it an invalid election and then reverse.
I just don't
Completely
see it.
If
impractical.
they so want.
I don't see it happen.
Completely
like I said,
impractical, man.
I
Yeah.
don't know anything about. I hadn't heard anything about the case, but that would cause so much turmoil. I cannot see SCOTUS
It's whether if
wanting
they
to
have,
touch it.
well, it's whether if they have the, the gusto to do it. And the thing is, historically, name a case that's even remotely tried that once at the federal level, and I don't know of any. And there's been many, but the thing is, how many have been accepted, and SCOTUS has actually given a ruling on that actually went in the result of removing politicians and declaring one illegitimate. And as far as I know, there's none. And at the same time, I look at I remember reading the Constitution, and I don't think the judge, is there any provisions in the Constitution that would even give them that authority to just outright toss an entire result by the electorate? Not the electorate, but the electorate, I should say.
So which that you have piqued my interest, G23.
Yes. What is
What
that case
is
called?
this?
I believe it is 22-380 on the SCOTUS.
Okay, but is this something they've agreed to hear, G23?
Yes, it is slated
Agreed to hear.
This is slated to go into oral arguments on January 6th. This is a case that is in front of them. They are going to listen to it.
CNN.
That's interesting because usually, pardon, Iron, but usually what SCOTUS will do is they'll wait for the accumulation of lower court decisions, and then they'll take that aggregate into consideration before they'll even consider that sort of thing. And oh my grandstanding God, the 6th itself is the day they're going to do that. It almost seems like a headline from The Onion or something like that. This
By
seems like fake
design.
news.
Yeah, like the Babylon Bee, but no, here. December 7th, 2020 from CNN. The case in front of the Supreme Court Wednesday could upend electoral politics. The Supreme Court is taking on the future of federal elections Wednesday, discussing the case could upend federal electoral politics and emboldening state legislators to act without judicial oversight. Let's see here. What other news agencies have reported on this? Supreme Court considers Brunson v. Adams.
Yes, that's the case. And I believe it comes out of like Utah is where the case started.
Here we go. We got something from 2 weeks ago, December 23rd, 2022. Supreme Court recently reviewed a petition for a writ of certiorari from Rayland J. Brunson in the case of Brunson versus Adams, docket 22-380. Under our Constitution, we the people are the sovereign power, and the court will need to receive letters of support from U.S. citizens in order for them to add Rayland J. Brunson petition to schedule and make a ruling.
See, and like there you go. Like the more I come to know about this, and G23, I want to make it clear I wasn't trying to dispute the veracity of what you were suggesting, kind of thing. When I was saying the fake news deal, it's just like that just seems so like impossible for them to even consider, kind of thing. And so I think in that kind of impossibility, at least I'm going to like forward the idea. Don't you think that you're probably just going to say, okay, well, lower courts, go ahead, figure it out, because this, there's got to be also a time component here, like. Once, I'm not saying this is a law somewhere, but something akin to once these results are certified, you have X number of days to to challenge these things, because there's going to be a point where the calendar turns a day. Say again.
Kind of like in Arizona with Kerry Lakes, you had only it's like a statute of limitations almost.
Yeah, And I would think that something like that is the kind of thing that federal agencies and SCOTUS itself they're aware of that kind of thing.
This has been in courts for now going on like 2 years. So it's not like something that's brand spanking new. This has been in the courts being fought. Just no one's talking about it.
You are. It's come to light tonight, at least for some of us. And what is it with the Ninth Circuit and the 10th Circuit? If this is indeed out of the 10th Circuit, yeah, I think Utah's 10th Circuit. It's like, you guys over on the left, you guys got some problems.
The Ninth Circus is just a crazy thing of whack jobs. I mean, look at what they did. Look at the recent ruling in Young v. Hawaii that you don't have a right to carry outside the home. Like, come on.
It's an interesting patchwork of laws that we have.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking at the docket PDF for it, and
Yeah, I think I talked about this on my show one of the nights that Mr. Foss couldn't make it, and it was kind of crazy. I actually found out about this from Cape Gunworks, who kind of talked about it. He didn't really, go into detail about it. He just said, "Hey, if you're interested in something, you want, to go down a rabbit hole, here's something to look at." And so I did, and I went down the deep, dark rabbit hole.
yeah, I'll have to look into that more.
Well, in a couple more days, maybe we will begin to see coverage of it. For God's sake,
I don't know.
What is the current distraction in the news? Like, I'm not trying to change the subject, but I am so far removed from traditional media that I don't even know what the distractions would be right now. What is the country paying attention to instead of more important things?
I don't watch the news either.
The Idaho murders. I'm gonna guess. I have no
idea what that even is.
So there was.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I didn't want to get into that kind of thing, but
there were some stabbings at the University of Idaho.
Yeah, by a WSU guy.
Which, interestingly enough, yeah, he attended Washington State University, and they caught the dude in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, he originated out of Pennsylvania, but the crazy thing is he's going for his doctorate in criminal justice.
That's not crazy. It's just ironic, maybe, and maybe not even ironic, for God's sake.
What's real funny is I got a friend of mine that a coworker where he got caught 30 minutes outside of Annensburg, PA. She lived outside of Annensburg. 30-minute drive for her.
So, my wife and I were kind of discussing this. Do you think that if, by chance, he would to get off, that this would not be like the ultimate case for him to write his thesis to get his doctorate finished? Is this something that maybe he had in mind?
Have a good night, MCK.
I think that probably any really serious or vaunted practice of law has been is out of that person's future, and at most, if they pass the bar, maybe kind of thing, they'd be ambulance chaser or representing other people. I mean, who's going to want that sort of who's going to want that kind of person to represent them?
He's not going for being a lawyer. He's going for like criminal justice. So
yeah, but CJ majors, along with sociology and and some of the other soft sciences, are ways that people begin their study of law.
Yeah,
usually have a bachelor's or master's leading into the into your pursuing that degree.
See, I think where he was going was trying to become like a professor, to be able to like teach, because that's why, why else would you be going for your doctorate? And because he's already got his major, he's already got his master's in criminal justice, so he could have been a law enforcement officer. He could, there's different things that he could have gone after, but now he's going for his doctorate in it.
The few people that I knew that were Crim J majors were criminals.
Build a better mousetrap.
He turned out to be a criminal, I guess.
Something about Sun Tzu. Know your enemy better than yourself, or know yourself better than your enemy.
There's a quote which I always attribute to. I always mix up Emerson and Thoreau. Yeah, I always get those two mixed up. But I think it was Thoreau who said he doesn't read the newspaper, is it's always the same stories, a murder and whatever else. I forget what he said exactly, but it's the more things change, the more they stay the same. The same news that's been going on for as long as there's been news. Just the names change.
If nothing else, I hope I intrigued your guys' interest with the SCOTUS reference. So
it's curious, and if it would just be crazy.
No doubt. And you were on the right vibe, and I went ahead and looked it up because I was confused about which way to attribute that, and it is Henry David Thoreau. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read it. Do you mind? That was actually for Foss. He says, let's see. If we read of one man robbed or murdered or killed by accident, or one house burned, or one vessel wrecked, or one steamboat blown up, or one cow run over on the Western Railroad, or one mad dog killed, or one lot of grasshoppers in the winter, we never need read of another. There are parts of that I really dig. And the 24-hour news cycle is one of those ways it's sort of proven that part of that distraction.
And Coop brought up the football player that got hit, and I think he died just a couple days ago. And
Damar Hamlin.
I don't.
Isn't he still in the hospital? I thought he was resuscitated.
Yeah, I don't want. I don't want to be crass or unfeeling, but I don't. Just because he's a football player and famous, I don't care. It's not that I don't. It's not that I don't care that maybe somebody died. It's just how many people die every day. Nobody hears their name. So why should this person be more important?
Yeah, it's like how many freaking kids at St. Jude die when no one knows their name, compared to the people that we wave our arms off, trying to get Kobe Bryant or someone like Kevin Durant to notice us, but just walk right by and ghost us like we don't even there.
Gizzard saying that Hamlin is alive and recovering.
Oh, that's good.
This was a lot more serious mouse party than normal. I didn't have too much for tonight, so I was just rolling with the punches.
Hey, Voss, can we do a bracket?
I did. I've got my. I made sure to bring down my comic books, but G-Webs isn't here, so I wasn't going to show them. I don't have a lot, and they're not valuable. But like my Star Wars.
Ooh. If you're going to parade the lovelies, you're going to have to be full screen, man, because I don't want to see something that's already small that tiny. There we are.
Wolverine, Doombringer, Speed Racer, Predator versus Judge Dredd. I had never seen any Judge Dredd. I didn't realize. I knew it was violent, but I didn't realize how violent.
Yeah, and those Dark Horse titles, they really did let them go. They were pre DC Vertigo, I think, and so you got some adult stuff like that. Yeah, cool.
Wolverine, Days of Future Past. Moon Knight. And these are ones from the 90s when the comic book companies wanted to capitalize on everybody thinking they could save comic books, and they had no value because so many people bought comic books to save them. Fantastic Four, Excalibur. Oh, and I'm sure we're going to start losing people because we're talking geek stuff now. But a bunch of these I picked up just because of the artwork. I thought the artwork was cool. The few that I got from my uncle when I was younger. Unexpected. And then this one is probably my favorite. Down here it says featuring the untold story of how Professor X lost the use of his legs.
Oh.
Rock on, a key issue. That's sweet.
And it was only 15 cents.
Damn it, Dan, you have no legs.
Captain America and the Falcon.
Yeah, that was like 20 cents back in the day.
Now you're looking to pay at least $20, $60 for the collectible ones.
And I had I don't know if it's in this one, or I had one that my mom's dog chewed up, which might have been the one with Bucky, where Bucky was not the same as the Winter Soldier. Bucky was a scrawny little Robin type sidekick.
So, Foss,
Yes.
when's the Krakamaw gonna finally decide to act right and get their judicial ruling out so that you guys can go back to having more than 10 rounds?
I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be an interesting and important Supreme Court session this year. And we'll see what rulings come out. So we'll see what happens.
Isn't that judge like 2 weeks behind on putting her decision out over there in Yakima? Because I think it was supposed to be out December 23rd, and now you're talking, it's January 5th. So we're kind of still waiting on pins and needles to find out what's going to happen there.
Well, because I know federally she denied a stay, and then she had oral arguments, and then she was going to come out with a ruling.
Zach Carr's out there. He's at work. Another another vampire out there.
Oh
Another
boy.
fellow vampire. I don't know. I haven't. There's sometimes, and I just, I'll tune out some of the stories. Just either tired of hearing about it or just don't want to make myself sad. So there's stories that I don't, just don't tune into. So I'm not sure where that's at.
Don't need the stress.
Yeah. Oh, so, DJ,
Yes, sir.
plug something.
That would be the discussion on Saturday evenings on the A Great Start Shooting School channel. I will drop a link out in the text chat for that. My buddy Guns and Barbecue does shows Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Thursdays are in the evening. Wednesday, just like today, is in the afternoon. Swing by. Sometimes they're informal. Sometimes they're kind of intense. You never know what you're going to get with Guns and Barbecue. And another candidate for your attention that I'd like to point out is the Costly Conversations podcast channel. And I will drop a link to them as well. So until I see everybody again, be safe, have fun, carry your guns, and rock.
Oh, and if anybody wants to drop links for their channels or whatever else, go ahead. My link dropper wasn't able to make it tonight, so Iron Road, anything you want to plug?
With Ballot Measure 114, keep up the fight. We got the GOA getting a TRO on that about the blah 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 that can't speak. Got on that anti-gun bill, and it just goes to show that every dollar you go to these organizations, not these big national ones, but mostly the small ones. Off-Back is also helping this fight, from what I understand. Talking with a couple of their point of contacts through their website, and other than that, just keep them in the 10 ring and keep up the good fight.
G23, anything you want to plug?
RNLdisplays.com. You can pick up firearm displays either for yourself or for a friend. If you want to save yourself a couple dollars, you can use code G23 for 15% off discount.
One just like this.
Yep. And they have more than just AR stands. They have PCC for Glock and pistol, single and double. So you can also go over and check out gearwebsites.com for all your 2A packages that you may like, or stickers, or calendars, stuff like that. And I'll probably be doing a live stream on Saturday. We'll see what happens if I decide I'm going to pick up this SCOTUS case or not. Wouldn't be the first time I've aired a SCOTUS case on my lives, so we'll see.
Candace?
Drive safe and carry responsibly.
All righty. So thank you to those who were out here in the chat, chatting it up. And those who watch this in replay, leave a comment. Whatever we talked about, let me know what you think. Anything we think we left out, you agree with, disagree with, let me know. I always read the comments. So no overnight this weekend. It's an off weekend. There'll be one the weekend after. Don't know what we're going to talk about. Haven't decided yet. Haven't thought about deciding yet.
I think Baron promised us an overnight this Saturday with you two. I'm pretty sure I overheard that somewhere. Or, maybe I'm just imagining it and helping G-Web promote that you should do it every Saturday.
I'll take that under advisement. So thank you to everybody. And I don't know. Can't think of Can't think of thinking I'm leaving something out, but I don't know. I'm always leaving something out. Again, thank you to everybody. And let me get rid of that real quick. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the night and a good tomorrow.